All right, everybody, welcome. This workshop is going to be choosing a research topic, and we're going to show you just some brainstorming activities and then how to kind of follow through with those research ideas to either narrow it down or broaden it if needed. So to minimize any background noise or questions, we just ask you to stay muted until the end. Then we can open up to questions, but feel free to use the chat box at any time because Julia is going to monitor it, and then I'm going to monitor it while Julia is talking. So please use the chat box for now. I'm probably also going to turn off my camera to minimize any kind of Wi-Fi issues, so you won't see my face in a second. And feel free to ask questions at the end or throughout the whole thing. And yeah, let's introduce ourselves. So your presenters today, I'm going to go first, and I'm at the bottom, Amanda Miller. I'm a reference and instruction associate here on the Youngstown campus at EGCC. You can email me there at aMiller@egcc.edu for any inquiries. And we do have a phone number here on the Youngstown campus.
And my name is Julia Stone. I'm a reference and instruction librarian. My email and phone are also listed on the slide. I am located on the West Coast in Oregon, so I work completely remotely, and I handle our virtual services like chat and library guides and virtual workshops. So you can feel free to reach out with any inquiries to me as well.
All right, here's an overview of the steps to choosing a topic, and we will go over each one of these topics more in depth on the next slides. So first, we always kind of start with brainstorming and reflecting after we get that prompt or assignment from our teacher. You know, whatever that Canvas assignment tells us to do, that's when we can start brainstorming and reflecting on what kind of research is needed. And then we can conduct our preliminary research. So that's going into Google, that's going into our library websites and databases and kind of seeing what's out there. And then from there, we can either decide to broaden or narrow our topic, depending on what we're finding through this preliminary research, or, you know, other things kind of come up in class, we might need to reassess depending on the certain needs of the assignment. So circling back to step one, which is brainstorming and reflecting when choosing a research topic. Use these ideas as inspiration to help you think of a topic for your research assignment or project that you're doing in any of your classes. Think on, what have you learned outside the classroom in past experiences? You can bring your own personal experiences and what you're knowledgeable to a lot of these classes you're taking. Also consider, what have you learned inside the classroom through lectures, homework, projects, different readings, the textbook, any videos that your teacher provided. Any one of those sources in the classroom itself can provide you some ideas of what to research. Things related to your major or future career interests also pertain. So if you're going for teacher education or something like that, you may be able to tailor your research in a different class to kind of suit your overall goals and like what you're going to be graduating with. You can also use encyclopedias, ebooks, websites, different articles, anywhere from around the web or in our databases. One of the databases we're going to highlight today is called Opposing Viewpoints Database. So we have a link for it here, and it'll take you into our databases with a single sign-on, and you can browse issues, and they also have a topic finder. So I'm going to take you into there because yes. Okay, there. When you click on that link, we are in the Gale in Context Opposing Viewpoints. We're signed in through Eastern Gateway Community College. You can access this through our library, or you can just use the link and get straight in here. Now, a few things that we can look at are, if we browse in this database down a little bit, it has like this scrolling option, which shows you hot topics right now. So we can see that this first one on our page is inflation, and we know a lot of people are talking about inflation, and you can click this button to explore this topic. Esports, another thing. If you're interested in that or it pertains to your major, you can explore that topic. And likewise, if you continue scrolling down in this website, they have the different categories broken down even further into some research categories. And we can see on the right-hand side if they're new or updated, and it gives you some narrower topics kind of to start researching in this. And look, we can see that there's 468 issues. So this is a great place to start if you are brainstorming. Now, say you know what you want to do. Say you want to do a topic like recycling. So you type it in the search bar right up at the top of the site, right under Gale opposing viewpoints, and it came up right away. So let's say you're interested in recycling. Search it. If they have it, it comes up, or you can look through it in those topic categories. Some things to note is on the Gale page is we can always read more about recycling. So maybe you have a general idea about recycling. You could always look to see what they're saying about it. And when you scroll down, they have featured viewpoints. I really like this link to a lot of these different topics. It'll take you right into the academic journals. But then you can kind of see news, infographics that you might be able to use on different projects like PowerPoint. You might be able to download those images and just give credit to it. They also have more images if you're using recycling images, videos. If you're a better auditory learner, you can look at the videos. So I really like looking at some ways to do this. And to get to the topic of recycling, you could have browsed, websites, articles, and kind of narrowed it down from there. So that is Gale and recycling. So 4 helpful brainstorming exercises to even get to that recycling point is mind mapping or idea mapping. This kind of just is a technique that you use to get your ideas out. So we can take that recycling example and we can write down recycling, circle that, and then what other ideas do we have in relation to recycling that might either narrow it down or help us think of other ideas for our assignment. And from there, you draw little branches out, and I think we'll have a picture of that coming up so you can kind of see what mind mapping looks like. You can do lines out to subtopics, related topics, continue branching those subtopics and related topics out as far as you need to until something kind of sparks in you that this will fit the assignment for sure, and this is what I'm interested in. Then highlight or underline any ideas in your idea web that you think you're most interested in, that you think would fit the topic very well. You can also do some reflection. Reflecting is just asking yourself some questions related to the assignment prompt or the class itself. You can ask yourself things related to your own interests, if that would work for this type of project. And always write down your responses, because brain dumping some of these reflection items and even mind mapping is a great way to get your ideas out on paper. So then you have them somewhere that you can look back on and see. Discussion is one of my favorites because when we do the discussion, we bounce ideas off of people. So we ask questions like, hey, does this make sense? Do you think this would work? What do you know about recycling? Any type of friend, family member, other person in the class, if you want to email them or send them an inbox through Canvas, like you could just message them and start like, hey, what are you doing for this assignment? I'm thinking about doing this. The librarians are here to help you, writing tutors or other various tutors across campus. And of course, free writing, which is my favorite. And this is where you kind of free write your ideas. You open up a blank page and you set a timer, so say 10 minutes, and you kind of just get all your ideas out on that blank page. You don't worry about writing coherently too much. You don't worry about grammar or revision. You just get your ideas out, so then later you can go back and kind of form them into more like sensible flow of ideas. And here's what the mind mapping looks like. When I was talking about branching out, you have subtopics, related topics, and always look for what kind of thing sparks your interest and what fits the prompt best. Some things are going to require you to have more broad topics. Some things are going to have more narrow topics. It just depends on what your professor expectations are and what is needed for the class. but always kind of highlight and keep track of the ones that you're most interested in and that fits the prompt well. And reflection again, ask yourself questions related to your assignment prompt. Always keep note of what you're thinking. And if you are asking yourself questions and you're writing out answers, always keep everything written down. Ask notes or ask your professor to clarify certain aspects of the prompt or for ideas or anything. That's kind of in this reflection mode where you write down everything that might possibly pertain later on. And then again, the discussion, another way to brainstorm ideas, family member, writing tutor, always bouncing ideas off of one another and asking those questions and seeing other people's perspective will absolutely help you in your research project. My favorite is free writing. If you haven't tried free writing, you open up the blank document or even just have a blank piece of paper and you can handwrite it, but set a timer and see how much you can get written in that timer about the subject that you chose. Don't worry about formatting or paragraphs or anything. That'll come later, but at least you have something out to see kind of like where your mind took you.
Okay, so step two. Step two is conducting preliminary research. So what is preliminary research? Preliminary research gives you background information and context about your topic. It's an important part of the research process because you want kind of a broader understanding of your topic, and it will help you see if there are even enough sources available, enough sources published to discuss the topic effectively. Because you may find that maybe not a lot has been published. Your topic might be too narrow or too specific. So it's a really good idea to conduct some preliminary research and really get an idea of what is out there on your topic. So one way to conduct preliminary research is to use our Gateway search box on the library homepage. You've probably heard this talked about before. It's that big blue box. And I'm going to show you, we're going to use that topic that Amanda was using of recycling, and we're going to look at research starters and how to filter our results and find some related subjects to recycling right within our Gateway search tool. So I'm going to switch my screen over to our library homepage now. So here is our library homepage with our Gateway search box right here. So a couple of things before we start our search for recycling. When you're doing preliminary research, it is a great idea to kind of start broad. Start with that big overhanging topic of recycling, and you can even just type in one keyword. If you're an online only student, I highly recommend clicking this box next to full text. This will ensure you can read online full versions of the ebooks and articles that pop up. And this peer-reviewed box is also something you might want to use later. Peer-reviewed articles are articles that have been reviewed by other experts in the field, and the experts will tell the original writer, hey, you need to change this part of your research, or you need to include more information about that. And then the writer will have to do revisions. And you know then that the peer-reviewed source is very, very credible. It has gone through this peer review process. So it's just like an added editorial step. You do not have to use peer-reviewed sources in all of your assignments. That's something you would want to check with your instructor about. If they do say, please use a peer-reviewed source, then you can check this box. Since we're doing preliminary research, a lot of preliminary research that we're going to be looking at is more reference sources, which are like encyclopedia entries, etc. And those are not peer-reviewed generally. Those are more just written by editorial staff with a broad overview of a topic. So we're going to start with not checking this box. Notice I'm in the Search All tab. That's the tab that I want for finding preliminary research because it's searching across tons of databases all at once, and it's going to bring up things like research starters and our filtering options. I'm going to do a search for recycling. And notice I am not signed into my account. If you're not signed in to your EGCC account, then it will prompt you to sign in. And this is all you have to do to sign into the library. You'll sign in with your EGCC email and password. For me, it's just texting me this code to make sure that I am me for security reasons. A nice, easy code. And now I'll be able to access everything in the library. So my preliminary search for recycling has shown up with a lot of results, over 2 million results. We noticed that there is a publication called Recycling. So that's something that I could click on and search for articles in that publication. It's probably pretty relevant since it's called Recycling. In addition, I have some ebooks that have popped up. Ebooks and books in general are good for background information because they generally provide a broad overview of a topic as opposed to articles from academic journals, which are more focused on very specific, up-to-date aspects of a topic. So what I can do is I can filter by source types. If I wanted to filter, for instance, by ebooks, I could click this checkbox and we see there's like 12,000 ebooks available to me. And I can update my list. And now I see all of the books related to recycling. We have recycling of polymers. So that already would be a much narrower topic than just recycling in general. We have recycling electronics and aluminum recycling. So these are all much narrower than just the topic of recycling itself. Recycling of building materials. So if I find something here that I'm interested in, like plastic recycling, for instance, or we'll look at the building materials one, I can click on this ebook and learn a little bit more about the book itself. I can see an abstract of the book. I can even see some content notes. And if I want to connect to the resource, there will be an online access section where there are links to connect to this book. So you can choose any of these. It will take you to the book just on a slightly different platform. The OhioLink platform is really easy to navigate, so I'm going to click on that. And I can see that this is my book, Recycling of Building Materials. I can click on chapters and see all of the different chapters. And this is a good way to get an idea of different topics as well. Material cycles or recycling of reclaimed asphalt, that's very specific, concrete rubble, and other types of construction waste. If I want to read the book, I can click read. And if I click this little symbol here in the top left, the 3 lines, I can jump from chapter to chapter. If, for instance, I was interested in the reclaimed asphalt, I could click on that chapter and I get a nice overview even of just what asphalt is and all of these different terms. And then I can read through this book, look at the diagrams, etc., and kind of get an idea about that topic. And I could also download a chapter. If you hit the download button in the top, you can choose which chapter that you want to download as a PDF. And sometimes it's easier to read in this format. And you can save it then for later to your computer with this button in the top right. So that is how you might navigate an ebook and use it to narrow your topic. I want to go back now to our gateway search. And I'm going to change from recycling to just recycle and see what pops up with just a change in the word, a slight change in the word. So for some reason, the research starter has popped up now that I've typed in recycle. And I do want to go over these. The research starters are essentially encyclopedia entries. For instance, this one is from the Salem Press Encyclopedia of Science. And it provides a really, really general overview of recycling, some background information, and there are also links to other research starters from this one. For instance, if we wanted to learn more about recycling programs, we could click on this and learn more about the recycling movement of the 1970s, which, again, that's a much narrower topic than just recycling in general. And we could learn about some of these programs like Keep America Beautiful or Earth Day. So these might be of interest to us for our topic. All research starters also include a bibliography, which is similar to like a works cited page or a references page that you might make in your paper. It's where they put what sources they use to create this article. So you could do a search for these titles in the library database or via Google even, and see if you can find access to these sources for further reading. Sometimes there will be websites here too, and that's of course very easy, where you just copy and paste the website address into your browser. But if we go back to the recycling research starter, we can see a great place to look are these headings. So like waste streams, that is a subshoot. If we were making an idea map of recycling, waste streams could be its own little circle off of recycling. So could technological innovations related to recycling or the economics of recycling. That, of course, is its own subtopic. There's electronic waste, which has its own research starter that we could click on and learn more about. So all of these things are great for narrowing your topic, looking at these various headings, and then you could conduct another search on that narrow topic. For instance, I could just jump right up here and do a search for electronic waste. Notice how it populated the search for me. Another term for electronic waste is e-waste. And by putting or, it's going to do a search that includes looking for this for electronic waste and for e-waste. It's looking for either of those terms in my results. So it will broaden my results. So here is everything about electronic waste. And we can, of course, filter on the left like we did before, looking for ebooks, looking for academic journals, which would give us academic articles. The other final thing I want to show you in Gateway Search is this subject limiter. If you click on the subject limiter and then you click on Show More, these are all of the subjects that have been tagged in our results. So whoever was putting these into the database tagged waste management for some of these entries, meaning about 24,000 of our results have to do with waste management. This is really helpful for us as we're narrowing our topic, because we can look through here and see what terms are related to electronic waste. And this is a way to narrow our topic even more. So we could look at electronic waste and how it is managed, the waste management aspect of electronic waste. We could look at sustainability. We can look at heavy metals or engineering. So there's a lot of different terms here that help us narrow our topic even more and might be good as keywords as well to add to our search. Keep in mind that when you're finding resources in the later steps of the research process, it's great to just do a ton of different searches with different combinations of keywords, and you'll find more and more relevant things the more you play around with the keywords. But that kind of gives you an idea of how to think of things if you're idea mapping, for instance. These subjects are kind of like subtopics for those idea maps. So now that we've dived a little bit deeper into gateway search, I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint slideshow. And yes, we talked about research starters. We talked about filtering results. Sorry, it's taking a second to go. Oh, there we go. Now that we've talked about preliminary research, our next step is to broaden or narrow our topic. And we talked a little bit about this when we were going through the research starters, looking at those headings, looking at those subjects, and how we could narrow our topic. But in general, a good rule of thumb is that if you're finding too much information on your topic, like millions and millions of results to filter through, then you need to narrow your topic. You need to add keywords to your search, and you need to really hone in on what it is you're interested in. However, on the other hand, if you're having trouble finding information on a topic, you need to broaden your topic. Now, this is less common because generally students will start with a broader topic instead of a very, very specific topic, but I have come across this sometimes where students are really interested in a niche topic, and you may find that there's just not enough written about it. Also, when COVID-19 was a newer part of our everyday lives, there just wasn't a lot written about it yet, and it was difficult to use that as a topic. Whereas now there is quite a bit written about COVID-19 in various subject areas. So how do you narrow your topic? There are a good amount of ways to narrow your topic. You can focus on a demographic. For instance, if you're interested in recycling among the elderly, how much do elderly people recycle as opposed to people such as young adults? You could look at that. If you're interested in recycling in a specific location, such as a certain state and the recycling programs within that state, that could be a way to narrow your topic. You could look at a certain time frame. We saw that a lot of recycling programs started in the 1970s, so we could focus on the 1970s specifically. You can also look at a relationship related to the issue, such as how recycling affects the environment or something, or the impact of recycling on economics. You can also focus on an issue within a particular field or industry. So recycling within the food industry, how does that work and what can you focus on within that? You could also focus on a smaller subtopic that's related to your broader topic. And we saw this with electronic waste or e-waste. That is a smaller subtopic that's related to recycling. Here are some tips for narrowing your topic. It helps to research your broad topic first, and then find more specific topics based on what you find. So we saw this in action in Gateway Search. Doing a search for recycle or recycling came up with a lot of results, but these results told us, hey, you could focus on recycling building materials. You could focus on recycling polymers or recycling electronics. And those, of course, are all more specific topics. You can also focus on subtopics that are based on your broader topic. And it helps to consider those subtopics that you discovered while brainstorming. So go back to the steps that Amanda went over. Try doing some searches for those and see what you find. You can also refocus your topic to fit into your field of study or your specific interests. If you're interested in like the social programming side of things, recycling programs like Earth Day or Make America Beautiful, those would be really great things to focus on if those have to do with your interests. Because of course, it's best to write about and research something that you want to learn about. It makes the assignment go way faster and make it more interesting for you. Now some tips for broadening your topic. If you are focusing on something way too specific, like recycling among young adults in Canton, Ohio in the 1970s, Like that's so specific because you're focusing in on this very particular group of people within a very particular timeline, small area. You can instead zoom out from your topic and focus on a larger geographic area. You could look at the whole state of Ohio or even the United States. You could expand the time period that you're focusing on. Instead, you could look at a less specific demographic or a larger sector of an industry. These are ways that you can broaden your topic if you're finding that you have honed in too much and can't find materials that are written about it. So, example topics. Let's look at a topic that's too narrow. How recycling increased jobs in Athens, Ohio during the pandemic. So we have one city in Ohio that's pretty narrow. We also are looking at a pretty specific time frame. The pandemic has been going on since 2019, so that's not that many years of things to be written about it. And recycling increasing jobs already is a pretty narrow topic. Just right, a topic that we probably would find a lot of information on, but not too much information on, would be the economic benefits of recycling in the US. You could even broaden, or you could narrow this even a little more and look at a certain state if you wanted to. A topic that's too broad, as we saw with our 2 million results, was recycling. That's not going to give you, it's going to make writing your paper a lot harder because recycling has so many aspects, so many facets to it that you're going to get stuck and bogged down by too many results. So, in conclusion, Amanda and I went over 3 steps today for choosing a research topic. If you're unsure where to start with choosing a topic, you can follow our steps. Step 1 was brainstorming and reflecting. Step 2, conducting preliminary research in Gateway Search. Step 3 would be broadening or narrowing your topic using some of our ideas in the last few slides. These are some helpful links which you have access to with the slide PDF that I sent. You'll have links to our Getting Ready for Research guide, which goes over the steps of conducting research, and then choosing a research topic tutorial. That kind of is a hands-on way of choosing your topic, goes through a lot of what we went through today in our presentation. We also have another video that might be of use, and the opposing viewpoints database, which Amanda showed in the beginning. Finally, you can make a research help appointment, and this is a one-on-one appointment with a librarian, and we can help you develop or refine your research topic, help you brainstorm search terms, show you how to do a search and filter through your results, and help you decide which resources are good and help you evaluate these resources to use for your project. So that link also is available to you via the slides, and you can make a virtual appointment. At this time, we'd be happy to go over any questions. Also, if you have a topic in mind, perhaps for one of your courses or just one you're interested in, we could run some demo searches for you and see what we could come up together with narrowing the topic. So feel free to write things in chat, unmute yourself, whatever you prefer. All right, I'm going to start with the question that says, can we research unemployment in the US? Sure, I'd be happy to help with a search for that. And then another person said, I have an assignment to research a business. Where would I start? That's a great question as well. We're going to start with that unemployment in the US question. I'm going to jump back to our library homepage now. So unemployment in the US, that's a pretty good narrow topic, but we of course would probably want to narrow it even further, but let's conduct some preliminary research on it. We'd start with just a search for unemployment. And I'll show you as well how we can filter by geographic area using a filter on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and click our search button. I have full text clicked on there. X out of some of these. So we did a search for unemployment. Notice how we did get a research starter because we typed in a very broad topic. So we could start there and look at our headings and kind of get an idea there. But I do want to point out on the left here, our geography area. We can filter by a certain location using a filter here. So, like you said, you were interested in unemployment in the US, we could filter by United States, and this does a generally pretty good job of finding just sources that are talking about the United States as opposed to other countries. So we're going to start with the research starter and then we'll come back to this. Here's our research starter on unemployment from the Salem Press Encyclopedia. So we have an overview of unemployment. We could look at unemployment in a certain time period, like the Great Depression. We could look at one of these acts that are related to unemployment. This is a heading about unemployment today and the recession. And this paragraph here talks about COVID-19 and its effects on the unemployment rate. So that would, of course, be a narrower aspect. Yes, so you could narrow it to the last 5 years. That would help narrow your topic for sure. And if you want to do that in your results list, I'll go back to our other page. Notice how we have publication dates back in the 1800s. We don't need it that far. So instead, we could go back 5 years and go to 2018 and hit enter. And now we're going to get resources that were published within the last 5 years. In addition, we can do our geography filter. And now we have a much more manageable list of things to look at. We could, of course, add other terms to our search. If, for instance, we were interested in COVID-19 and its effects on unemployment, we could add COVID-19 here, and that would narrow our list even more. Or we could also go to our subject limiter to get an idea of some of the other related terms to unemployment. So these are some things that are mentioned in our articles: public health, the stock market, company business planning. There's a lot of things, poverty, other areas here that we could focus on related to unemployment as well. So once you find an article that you do think really would be of interest to you, you can click on it, read the summary, and then access the full text by clicking in the top left. In addition, if you wanted to save a link to this article later, I encourage you to use this permalink tool in the right-hand side. And you can copy and paste this link into a Word document or email this to yourself. And this link is a persistent link, meaning if I copy and paste it into a new tab, it's going to show me this exact page I'm at. If I copy and paste this link in the top, it's not going to show me that page. It's not going to load properly. So use the permalink if you want to save a source. Another way, and this is a little bit outside of the scope of searching within the library, but it's one of my favorite ways to search for topics like that have to do with the United States and with perhaps government related things, is to search in Google and narrow by government sources. So I'm going to show you how to do this as well. It's one of my favorite research techniques. You can do a new tab with Google and you can do a search for unemployment. And you can do cite : and I'm going to copy and paste this in the chat, site:/.gov. And this, when you do the search, narrows to just government websites. And I'm in Oregon, so Google has decided that it should be about Oregon, but it narrows to just government websites. And government websites are credible resources, they're vetted, they are not going to be trying to sell you anything, they're not commercial websites. So in this way, we could find out about unemployment benefits for certain states or for certain, like if we wanted to find out about unemployment in Ohio specifically, we can read about their benefits or about different departments in Ohio related to this. And so it's a good way to kind of get an idea on a government level of where a topic, of what a topic is related to the government. And you can look at these sources, and these would be good sources to use in a paper because they are government sources. So hopefully that gives another idea. It can also be good for finding like charts and how something has changed over time. So definitely keep that in mind as you're doing research related to anything related to government. I am going to jump over to our business topic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's so helpful.
So
thank you.
I'm glad that was helpful. And Grace, I think, was the one who wanted to research a business. And we do have business-specific databases that are great for looking up information about businesses. So I'm going to go to our library homepage. And in this case, we're going to go to our A to Z database list. And all of these are databases that you have access to as an EGCC student. They focus on usually particular subject areas, although some of them are multidisciplinary, meaning they have multiple subjects in them, such as Academic Search Complete. But for business, I'm going to filter my databases down by the subject of business and economics. And we can see we have 29 databases or 29 collections of business resources. These top two are my two go-to resources for this. I'm going to do Business Source Complete. And the interface looks very similar because it's powered by the same company. So we can type in a business name here, such as if we want to research Target. So we can do a limit to full text. And we notice that Target Corporation is popping up, which it makes sense because Target as a word also falls in phrases like target marketing. So we probably want to filter by a company. So we can show this area on the left, and we see that Target Corporation is showing up. So we'd want to filter by that to take out results related to target marketing. And there's some analyses that are popping up. We have a company profile for Target. We have some periodical articles, some like magazine articles about Target. We can filter on the left even more by publication date, for instance, if we want information from Target within the last 5 years. We can type in 2017 and hit enter. And now our results are smaller. We can go through and see our company profiles. If there's an article that we're interested in, this one is from Fortune, we can click on PDF full text. And this talks about the turnaround of their stock prices. And it should load our PDF full text article here from Fortune. In addition, there is this company information tab. So if you have a company name in mind, you can click on company information. And I'll stick with Target. And we see Target Corporation, located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. We want the USA headquarters, so we're going to click on that. And this is going to give you some general information about the company. We can see its revenues, we can see its executives, we can see which industry it's in. We can see the year it was founded and some other facts. And we also see its official website, and this can be a good source of just some general information about a company. We can also click on this supermarkets link, and it will link to articles that have to do with supermarkets. If we're more interested in the industry of supermarkets as opposed to just Target. And we can see all of these articles related to supermarkets. If we, for instance, want to find competitors to Target and want to do a search and see which ones pop up, like Kroger or anything like that. But yeah, I definitely recommend a business-specific database like this one, like Business Source Complete. You can also click on this Choose Databases by Subject. And this is a newer feature, and you can filter by subject. If you click on this arrow, you'll see all of the databases it's going to be searching in. And all of these are related to business and economics. So it's going to broaden your search. If I click this and I hit OK, and I do a search for Target Corporation, now I'm searching, instead of just Business Search Complete or Business Source Complete, I'm now looking in business economics databases in general. And I have a bigger amount of articles to sift through. So that kind of gives you an idea of how to look into a particular company. Are there any other follow-up questions you have about researching a business? Yeah, I'm not seeing any follow-up questions yet. Are there any other topics that you all are interested in researching or narrowing? Those are great topics and great questions that we had in chat. How do you review scholarly sources? That's a good question. So evaluating and making sure that a scholarly source is good to use, that really comes down to what type of assignment that you're doing. So how I would recommend is asking your professor if you need peer-reviewed sources. And peer-reviewed sources, as I mentioned, are those that have been reviewed by experts in the field. I have a good tutorial about evaluating information that I'm going to send in chat. We could do a whole, and we probably should do a whole workshop on evaluating information and making sure that it is credible and good to use. We don't really have time today to go over completely how to do that, but I'm going to send that tutorial. And I do recommend using the library, because the library, as opposed to Google, is going to do some of that vetting for you. It's going to do some of the process of finding credible information for you, because these are academic databases that you're searching in. So I'm going to find that tutorial real quick about evaluating. This one's about evaluating websites, but it does talk about evaluating information in general as well. And it goes through some helpful frameworks for that. And then this finding scholarly articles one is also worth checking out, because it talks about the peer review process and locating peer-reviewed scholarly articles in the library databases. So hopefully those two give you a little bit of hands-on exercises to learn more. But that question is really helpful to us because now when we're planning workshops, we know that maybe an evaluating information workshop would be helpful. Any other questions before we end today? All right, looks like we are all set. So thank you so much for attending. It was a pleasure, and we hope to see you at the remaining Library Week workshops.